All right, everybody. So, next series of our knife cuts is onions and garlic. Okay. So, I've got my chef's knife, I've got my onions, I've got my garlic. Now, one of the things yesterday I did not demo, and I'd like to take the opportunity to, is how to properly hone a chef's knife. Okay. This is called a steel, and this is what's used to hone your chef's knife. This, of course, the chef's knife itself, and when you're honing it, the way that I learned was to hold the steel at a 45-degree angle, hold the knife as you normally would, okay, with your 3 fingers underneath, your thumb on one side, your index finger wrapping, and then you slide your knife across the steel very gently at about a 15-degree angle, and that will help keep your knife nice and sharp. Okay, so there's one way. That's the way I was taught. An alternative way is to hold the steel upside down and slide your knife going downward. And that way, there's no risk of you possibly cutting a finger or accidentally nicking the knife on the knife guard right there. I find this way myself to be a little awkward because it's not the way that I was taught, but it is certainly an alternative way to honing your knife. It's not sharpening, it's referred to as honing, which keeps your knife sharp. Okay? So that's how you would do that particular exercise. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get started. As you guys can probably tell, I'm at the school today. So let's go ahead and we'll start with the onion first. Okay? So the first thing is take your onion, and I want you to cut off the bottom root end, okay, and as well the top end, okay? So what I affectionately call the North Pole and the South Pole. And then peel. Now with this particular onion, I can see that there is, that very first layer of onion right here, okay, needs to be removed. So I'm just gonna make a small little cut into that onion, and I'm going to peel that first layer off. Make sure that any of this slippery little skin also comes off as well too, okay? So there is one. And I like to leave a little bit of that root end on the onion. It helps to keep everything held together, okay? So leave a little bit of that root. So there's one, okay? Let's go ahead and do the other. Now, a lot of people ask, how do you stop from crying? Well, unfortunately, with onions, there's not much you can do to prevent yourself from crying. Although I have heard lately, if you're wearing your face mask, it can help, because it prevents you from breathing in the compounds that are in an onion that cause you to cry. So there's the other one. So we have both of our onions now done, okay? All right. Now let's go ahead and we'll start with our garlic also, since we're peeling everything. So to peel your garlic, there's 2 ways. You can trim off the little bottom root right there, okay? And then just start from the bottom and kind of give it a little squeeze until the papery portion starts to loosen up. Now, admittedly, the garlic that you guys get is already pre-peeled to make it a little easier, because this can be a little difficult at times, but there's one, okay? Another way is you can place the garlic on your work surface, give it a light tap, okay, and you can peel it that way as well too. And again, it has to be a light tap, otherwise you'll end up crushing your garlic. Okay, so let's go ahead now and get started. We have our garlic, we have our onions right there. So let's first start by slicing our onion. So take your onion, I want you to cut it in half, okay? So there's the North Pole, there's the South Pole. This would be the equator, if you would, okay? Don't cut it around the equator. Cut it North Pole to South Pole, just like that, okay? Then, I do, for slicing, like to remove the core. So you place it down on your table, okay, very carefully. Well, I think probably an easier way is just come in at about a 45-degree angle right at the end and cut inward, okay? And that will remove the root. Okay, then take your onion. I like to place it cut side down, so it prevents it kind of helps a little bit, I think, with, crying, because the exposed side, it's cut down or is facing down. Okay, so just like with all vegetables when we're cutting, or all cutting, we want to have our guide hand out, okay? And I'm going to maybe move this camera a little bit, get a little better angle. There we go. So, guide hand, fingers tucked back, okay? And start by pushing forward and down, forward and down, forward and down. Nice and simple, nice and thin, about 1/8 of an inch, okay? Slicing our onion. If any of the onion starts to build up, just slide it off. As I start to get to the end here, okay, and it starts to get a little too difficult for me to hold, that's when I'll turn it down. Turn the other side down like that, and then continue with that down and forward motion. Down and forward, down and forward. Okay, just like that. So let's try that again. Let's take our other half of our onion. Onions can be hard to cut for a multitude of reasons. One, your eyes are watering because you're crying. 2, it's round, okay? 3, your knife is sharp. Combine all that together with your crying, a round, slippery vegetable, and it can sometimes spell disaster. More chefs and cooks are slicing onions, or working with onions in general, than any other vegetable, okay? So, just like that. And then again, when it gets too hard to hold, I turn it down and continue to slice. Even right now, my eyes are starting to water. And that is how you slice your onion, okay? So that's sliced onion. Now let's move on to dicing an onion. Let's move that out of the way. Okay. Now, same thing to dice our onion. Take your onion, cut it North Pole to South Pole. Place your cut ends down. I'm going to try the mask thing, so if you hear my voice being muffled a little bit, that's because I put my mask on to see if, well, maybe that wouldn't help with the crying aspect. Now in this case, because we're going to be dicing the onion, I want to leave a little bit of that root end on. Now this one's a little trickier because you have to make vertical and horizontal cuts, okay? So we're going to start by making our horizontal cuts first, very carefully, about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom, and about 1/4 of an inch from the end. Come up 1/4 of an inch, do it again, very carefully, then come up and do it again, just like that. So those are my cuts going through the onion horizontally. Now I want to go vertical. And again, about every 1/4 of an inch. Just like that. Now don't worry if you get a few little onion pieces that, start to fall off. That's okay. Grab a hold of the onion bundle and then 1/4 of an inch down and forward. Down and forward, down and forward, down and forward, down and forward, down and forward till I get to the end. Once I get to the root end there, then I can just continue to make a few shallower cuts in towards that root. If a piece falls off, I don't really worry about it. And then I'll dice that portion of the onion as well. And then the root itself, I just throw and discard the root, so I don't really save that part. Okay, so there's some diced onion right there. Let's go ahead and do that one more time. And I will say, wearing my mask is helping with not crying so much. All right, so next one. Same thing. Make our cuts. Don't push too hard down on the onion, okay? Because remember, you're trying to cut horizontally. Some very light pressure. You can put your hand on top, okay? And just kind of go through a little bit, just like that. Then, in the vertical direction, just like this, and then grab that bundle, down and forward. Just like that. Okay, and then when you get to the end, you can just kind of dice a little bit of that end up. But I typically, again, will throw, you know, that root section, not necessarily away, because I can use it for a stock, or I can puree it with some tomatoes if I'm making a rice, such as Spanish rice. So, you know, don't necessarily need to throw it away. So there is our diced onion right there. All right, next item, our garlic. So right here, we have our sliced onions, we have our diced onions, and now we'll work on our garlic. All right, so to chop garlic, typically I like to cut that little root end off right there and get rid of that root end. Then, almost just like the onion, I'll take and I'll make little slices going in a horizontal direction, then in a vertical direction, and then turn it sideways and cut vertically again. This time though, I go and do the whole clove of garlic. Once I get that clove of garlic into small little pieces, then I'll take my knife and I just rock my knife back and forth, gathering the little pile up together, rock back and forth, rock back and forth, occasionally and carefully wiping off my knife, bringing everything together in a pile, and chopping. So there is chopped garlic. Okay, just like that. So there's our chopped. Okay, last one is minced garlic. So let's say we want to really mince up the garlic nice and fine, okay? I've learned kind of this unorthodox way of kind of doing it, where you actually crush it with the spine of your knife. So you turn the knife upside down and then just crush the garlic very carefully, okay? Just like that. So as you can see, it's really kind of broken up. And then I'll rock my knife back and forth, okay? And then I'll take my knife and I'll smash it. So I'm just kind of smashing the garlic against the weight of my knife and my cutting board surface. So I really end up with a minced product. Some chefs like to add salt. I do not add salt to mine because it is abrasive, but then there's our minced garlic. Okay, and as you can see, it is much smaller than the chopped garlic. It's going to give a much more intense garlic flavor. So there is our 4 products for this lesson: sliced onions, small diced onions, chopped garlic, and minced garlic. Always remember knife safety. Okay, this is probably the hardest, just due to the fact that, you know, our eyes are watering sometimes, and it can be a little hard to hold on to that onion and navigate through it. So just be patient, take your time. Okay, do 1 onion at a time, then move on to the next onion after that. All right, everybody, that's our knife skills for onions, slicing, small dicing, chopping garlic, mincing garlic.